Hello and welcome to this presentation by the City of London Police for Charity Fraud Awareness Week. My name is Chris Buckingham. I'm speaking to you from the UK's National Fraud and Cybercrime Reporting and Analytical Centre, and I'd like to take you through a few-minute journey of findings of a 2023 report into charity and fundraiser related fraud and cybercrime. Now, by comparison, if you look at the rolling dashboard web address on the screen, 13 months worth of data looks at organisational victims by comparison to individuals. So you can see there the loss figures and the report numbers. There's not particularly illustrative of those offences that disproportionately affect the charity and fundraising sector. So with some assistance from colleagues in the Research Analysis Department, utilising findings of the 2023 report, I can bring you some more specific figures. Now, there is a caveat with these figures, of course, being a self-reporting system, that there might be some variation in what has actually occurred as to how it's been reported and which code it rests against. So without further ado, of course, the NFIB 90 other fraud is probably most likely to be a breakdown of the other fraud areas, amongst others. So, of course, some of the top three findings: business email compromise, payment diversion related, insider and fundraising. So, business email compromise, payment diversion fraud. A particular example we saw from the data set was a charity where there were two layers of authorization. A requester had reached in via email. The first person did not detect that a character string had been changed in order to impersonate that payment method, and nor did the second person. So relying just on an email as a means of payment and communication is fraught with errors, certainly where the second layer of checking also didn't pick it up. And that was quite common. Key learnings: always confirm large payment requests or changes to standing orders and direct debits are done via using what I would determine multi-factors of authentication, really. Video call, telephone, email, face-to-face, text, a variety of means of contacting that known and trusted source. And obviously, that said, not to trust solely email addresses and email communications in particular. Providing information and guidance on business email compromise and payment diversion fraud to staff, and be aware of technological changes in this space. If there is an email breach or fraudulent payment suspected to be made, employees should be aware of who they need to report it to internally and what further action should be taken. Now, corporate employee fraud, otherwise termed perhaps as insider related. I hope you like this image here. It's now known as Where's Waldo. And the point on this is the fact that charitable organisations often have, due to resourcing and so on, few people with multiple roles each. More reflective perhaps in the micro to small setups, but could be as prevalent in the larger organisations as well, through sort of, cost saving exercises and fewer people taking on more responsibilities, which unfortunately then creates an opportunity for those who want to misappropriate funds. We saw examples of abuse of corporate cards, anything from mileage to payments, family members being on the payroll, and all sorts of other issues related to sort of trustees and others. So key learnings: multiple measures to be undertaken to ensure the vulnerability of this fraud type is minimised. Look at your policies and procedures. Important that single individuals are not left with too much responsibility for their own good as well as the organisations. Important to conduct regular independent audits of such transactions. Have another layer of authentication, cross-checking. Organisations also need to ensure that only those who need to have access to sensitive information do so, and of course it's removed when it's no longer necessary. Measures should also be in place to allow employees to challenge where they believe or suspect there's been misappropriation of funds. Fundraising fraud. A particular issue that we came across was whereby the sort of medium to larger organisations would contract third parties, and then in turn the third parties would utilise self-employed or further contracting of services right down to the grassroots level, i.e., money in the bucket or the sign-ups to the direct debits and standing orders not coming through to where they should do, and issues within whereby members of the public had queried standing orders and direct debits, certainly where there was commission-based sign-ups, whereby they'd not signed up for the value that they said they had and approved. Key learnings: greater due diligence, certainly with regarding self-employed persons into the arena, limit the risk. Fundraisers should make sure they use reference checks. We saw cases whereby it was part of their procedures and policies to check references, but on those occasions they hadn't, and obviously then regretted it. And of course, within those checks, DBS checks where applicable and relevant. Brings on to cybercrime, computer-dependent crimes. Thankfully, these were not so prevalent, but I thought I'd cover this here because it is a crime type that can affect this sector and sectors just as equally as anyone else. The UK's technical authority on this, the National Cyber Security Centre, ncsc.gov.uk, some really useful helps and tips on there and guidance, things like My Cyber Toolkit and other software that can be downloaded for free to help businesses and organisations when it comes to cyber security matters. And finally, when it comes to crime, for cyber and or indeed fraud, it's presently Action Fraud and the enhanced cyber reporting service that we host in the City of London Police as a bespoke service for organisations Monday to Friday 8 till 5, 0300 123 2040. That service is available outside of those hours, but it's handled by the call centre, who may well triage those instances to be picked up again by the dedicated service during those hours. Obviously, outside the telephone number, actionfraud.police.uk for useful helps and guidance, and of course the reporting platform. I hope you've otherwise found this helpful. Take care. Thank you. Goodbye.